Okay, an exercise. Yay! Because I'm sure all I've been saying might go over your head without actual practice. So we're given this string. Before I take up a big string, let's do something as simple as id plus id star id. So the operator precedence parser seems similar to the shift reduce parser, except of course there's something new, the delimiter, which is the precedence relations. These guys over here. So the way we do the stack implementation is like this. We have the stack, I'll do that. We have the stack, we have the precedence here, we have the input. Let's create more space for the stack. We have the precedence, we have the input buffer, and then we have the actions. So we have this, and then remember that the bottom of the stack is here, the right end of the input buffer is over here, and then we fit in the string. Now, what is the first action? Before we do that, we have to note that the delimiters, these relations, and we have a table over here. I'll be zooming in from time to time. I cannot really make the table large because we don't have much room. So look at this. Star comes first before star comes first. This guy comes first before ID in our string. So since star comes before ID, what is the precedence? The precedence is the it yields precedence to ID. So this is what the precedence looks like. So in this case, what happens next? Because it yields precedence to ID, we shift ID to the top of the stack. So we'll have $ID. Now, what is next? What is the operator that comes next? It's plus. So look at this relation, ID and plus. What is greater? So we have ID, then we have plus. What happens? ID takes precedence over plus. So the sorry, I should have added something. Dollar sign. I'm going to leave the relation. So we have this, and then since ID takes precedence over plus, we have this plus star ID. So what happens when ID takes precedence over plus? And we have this at the right end. Remember I said that whenever you have something at the left end, when it's scanned to the left, until the leftmost, this guy, it treats everything as an handle. So right now, what is the handle in this case? The handle is ID. ID becomes the handle, right? ID becomes the handle. Everything here becomes the handle. So when we find an handle, what do? We should reduce if we have that. I'm going to bring back the um the grammar so that we won't be lost. We have E derives E plus E. We also know that E derives E star E. We also know that E derives ID. I think those are the three that we need to use right now. So we have these guys. Now when we are reducing E derives ID. ID is over here. So reduce E derives ID. So what does that give us? It gives us, now in this case, we have undo that. If we scan, we are back to this guy. So what do? Dollar sign and plus. We have dollar sign and plus. So on the table, if we look at this, dollar sign and plus, it yields precedence to plus. So because of that, we are going to have to bring in plus. So the dollar sign. Now we have this. We are going to shift plus. So when we shift plus, we are going to have dollar sign, this, and this. We have this again. Then we have plus. Now plus and plus. What happens when we have okay, not plus and plus. What is left on on the input buffer is id plus id. Now plus will yield precedence to id. So we have plus and we have id. So plus yields precedence to id. What do we do when we have this symbol? We shift. So we shift id. When we shift id, what do we have? We have the dollar sign, we have this, 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 and then we have the dollar sign. We have the id, sorry. And then what's left on the input buffer? We have the multiplication, and then we have this. Now what do? We observe the table, the id and star. id and star. What does that look like? id and star. So id takes precedence over star, as we can see here. id takes precedence over star. Because of that, we have this. And remember that when such a thing happens, we have an undo. So what do? We reduce e derives id. What then do we have? We have this derives this plus derives this. This is what we have. Now note we are left with a star and an id and a dollar sign. Between star and we have plus and star. Plus and star. What is of bigger importance? Plus and star. Star takes precedence. Plus yields precedence to star. Plus yields precedence to star. So what do? We have this marker here, so we know that we have to shift star. We are not working with the non-terminal. The non-terminal is not important in making decisions, but the operators are. So star takes precedence over plus, and because of that, we are going to have to shift star. Normally, left to us in the shift to reduce parser, we just add the option of reducing this guy, but we can't because star has more precedence over plus, and we can't just do that. So we shift star to the stack. So we have dollar sign, we have this plus, we have this, and we have this guy, and then we have star. But then what we are left with is id and dollar sign. So star and id, what takes precedence? So star id. Star yields precedence to id. So that's what we have. Now since star yields precedence to id, we are going to have to shift id. So what does that give us? We have the dollar sign, we have this, we have this, we have this, we have plus, we have this, we have this again, we have this, we have star. Then it yields precedence to id. So what is on the input buffer? The dollar sign. And what happens with id dollar sign? id and dollar sign. id takes precedence to dollar sign. So we are going to have id takes precedence over. And when we have this, we already have an undo going on. So what does this give us? We reduce id. So when we do that, what do we have? We have this plus e f star f id. No, not id anymore. We've worked on id, so it becomes the non-terminal e. But then since we are not going to work with the non-terminal, we are going to work with the next operator that is there, and the next operator is star. So we have a star and dollar sign. So going up to star and then we're going up to dollar sign, star takes precedence over dollar sign. So star takes precedence over dollar sign, and since it takes precedence, we have another undo going on. So we scan back. Where is the previous this guy? We have, since we are not dealing with the non-terminals essentially, we are dealing with this operator. We'll scan and then we'll find out that we have e star e going on here. Look at that. So we have E star E. Now E star E can be reduced, right? So we reduce E derives E star E. So what do we have? We have dollar sign E plus E. Now we are ignoring this. The next operator is the plus. Now dollar sign and plus, or plus before dollar sign, what happens? Plus then dollar sign. Plus takes precedence over dollar sign. So we still have this going on. And since we have that, we see another handle. We can trace back. So we only have E plus E at this point. So we reduce E derives E plus E. So what do we have? We have now, since we have this, we realize that there's kind of nothing else that can be done here. Since this guy and this guy don't mix, there's nothing on the entry table for them. So since there's nothing on the table, and then we have reached the start symbol itself, we can simply accept from here. And that is all for this particular question. But yeah, we all know that we are never given simple questions in exams and tests. We are always given hardcore questions that can want to take our lives away. But thank God for giving us victory over our enemies. So we are examining an exercise that is bigger than the first. The exercise we're having is this. ID star open parenthesis ID to the power of ID minus ID divided by ID. Yes, this question is literally telling us to get wrecked. Okay, so I'm going to do the grammar. So we have E plus E. It also E star E also derives E divided by E. Also derives E to the power of E. Also derives open bracket close bracket E parenthesis rather, then negative E and ID. So these are the productions that can happen, and we are using this table also. So what do? We have the stack, we have the precedence, we have the input buffer, and then we have the action. We are going to leave a long table for this one, and I might need to create more space from time to time. Okay, so we have this. Now the bottom of the stack and the right end, we have this, and the input symbol, we have this. The input string rather, we have this. So stack, when we have bottom of the stack and ID, what is it on the table? This and ID. This, what does that give us? ID takes precedence over. So I mean, the stack, the bottom of the stack symbol yields precedence to ID, but ID takes precedence. But depending on this, we're having dollar sign yields precedence to ID. So what do we do next? We shift ID to the top of the stack. What do we then have? We have the stack. We have ID. Let me make this smaller. We have ID. Now, what is on the top of, what is on the left end of the input buffer? We have this. Now we have ID and star. Which takes precedence? ID should take precedence over star. So because of that, we have an handle already that exists. This is an handle. Because of this relation. This relation says reduce instead. So we reduce E derives ID. So when we reduce that, what do we have? We have E. Now this is a non-terminal, so we are going to have to ignore this and then go back to the last operator, which the last operator is the dollar sign. So now we have the dollar sign and the star. So the dollar sign versus star, who is yielding? So star dollar sign yields to star. So because of that, we are having this, and with this symbol, it tells us we can shift. So we have this going on. So what do? We shift star. Because we are shifting star, we will then have E, then star. Now we have star, and then what's on the input buffer? We have these. Okay, so we have star, and then we have the open bracket. We know that for open bracket, regardless of the arrangement, it should always be to yield precedence to. As we can see here, this is the opening of the bracket and this is the star. Where do they meet? Yields precedence every time. So whenever you're having a relationship between the open bracket, it's always yields precedence. So we are having to yield precedence to this guy. So what do? Because of this symbol, we can shift again. So we shift the open bracket. So what do we have? Let me expand my ground here. So we have this going on. We have star, and because of the shift, we then have the open braces, the open parenthesis, and now open parenthesis would be relating with ID. And remember, we just did something about whatever, no matter the arrangement, is always yielding precedence. But let's check it out to validate what we just said. So it's always yielding precedence to ID. So in this case, it's yielding to ID. It's going to be yielding every time. As you can see here, it's yielding every time until it reaches the close parenthesis. So it's yielding precedence again. So it means we can have ID. We can shift ID to the. Alright, let me just write the input buffer. What do we have here? Expand that for readability. So we shift ID. Alright, so we will have dollar sign ID. Now ID, what's on the input buffer? So ID and the correct, what goes on there? ID and this guy. ID takes precedence. Okay, so since ID takes precedence, what do? We write that out. ID takes precedence over the correct. So instead, because of this symbol, we have an handle existing, and this is the handle. So we reduce. E derives ID. So what do we have next? We have dollar sign. We have that. All those relations. we have this, we have this, we have this. But then ID has been reduced, so we have E. Note that the non-terminal is going to be ignored from now on. So what is the next big thing? We have this guy. And since we have this again, let me do this. We have the open bracket again. It's the one on top. Since we're ignoring the non-terminal, what is next on the list? We have um, correct ID minus ID dollar sign. So the next on the list is this guy. So the open braces to the correct, like every other one, is yielding precedence to the correct. So we yield precedence again, and since we are yielding precedence, we can shift the correct. So what do? We shift that. We have uh, so we have shifted the correct. What is left on the input buffer? Now, correct versus ID. Who takes precedence? Correct versus ID. So correct will yield precedence to ID, which means we are going to have to call upon ID to show up. Shift ID. Yeah, it's a long process, I know, but I really have to do this. We have this. ID. Now, what do we have next? In the input buffer, we have minus ID star, and ID versus the close bracket. Remember, we talked about the close bracket always about taking precedence, regardless of the order. It's always taking precedence. But then let's look at the table again to confirm. So ID versus close bracket. Yes, this guy. So ID is taking precedence over the close bracket. So what do we have? We have this, and this symbol says that we can reduce. So what are we reducing? We are reducing ID. So we reduce ID, reduce, E derives ID. Now since we are reducing E derives ID, we're going to have dollar sign. This is this. Now we're ignoring this and going back to the previous operator, which is this. But what is on the top of this guy? Yes, we have this. We have minus ID. So remember, let me just do that instead. We have this versus this. So when we check this versus this. So what do we have? It's taking precedence again. So this guy takes precedence over this, and because of that, you can reduce. What can we reduce? Look at the handle. We can have an handle here because we are going from we're going to scan back to find this guy, to find this guy over here. So we have a full handle. So when we have a full handle, what do? We reduce further. We reduce again. So we reduce, in this case, e to the power of e. Since we can reduce that, we go forward. We have all these. So what does this give you? Gives you e. Now, what is left? We have this guy, id sign. Now, on the table, open versus close would give us the equal precedence. Open versus close gives us equal precedence. And since it gives us equal precedence, we can simply just say, we can just shift. So we shift the closed parenthesis. So we treat it like it yields precedence to, but since it doesn't really matter, we shift the open press. So we have So it doesn't really matter, but let's just say we have that because we can't exactly do anything with the equal to. Now, what do we have? We have minus id dollar sign. Now checking for close bracket, we know that regardless of the order, it should be take precedence over, but we'll still confirm. So minus versus close bracket takes precedence. No, close bracket minus rather. Close bracket and minus. So what do we have? It still takes precedence. So in this case, we are going to have to use this, and this means that there is another handle. And from our productions, we can see the handle over there. So what do we have? We reduce E derives this guy. And when we do that, what do we have? We are going to have E. We are going to have to create some more space. So I'm going to have to clean some things. But then, let's get back to work. We have minus ID. Okay, now look at this. We are ignoring this. We are going back to the star. So when we have star and minus, which one takes precedence? So star should take precedence over minus. So you can see from here, it takes precedence over. We will then have this symbol again, which means we can reduce. And what is the handle? This entire thing is the handle, since this is the most important. So we reduce one more time. We have E derives E star E, and then we go back to E. What's left on the input buffer? We have minus ID divided by ID dollar sign. All right, and then ignoring the non-terminal, what do we have? We have to deal with the dollar sign. So minus should supersede, should take precedence over, but since we are doing the dollar sign first, dollar sign and minus. So check this, dollar sign minus, it yields precedence, So what do? We do this, and then we shift minus. For the want of space, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this down. Okay, scale that down, and that, voila, that checks out. So what do we do from here? We are shifting the negative, so we have minus. So the next thing on the list is ID divided by ID. Okay, and minus versus ID on the list. Minus versus ID yields precedence to ID. So it yields precedence to ID, and so we shift ID then. So when we shift ID, what do we have? We have but then we have ID, we have dollar, we have divided by ID dollar sign. And what is more important? On the table, we have ID versus division. So ID and division. So ID takes precedence over the division. So it takes precedence. And again, we have another handle. So ID is the handle. So therefore we reduce E derives ID. When we do that, what do we have? We have dollar sign E minus E. Now what do we have left? We have the divided by ID dollar sign. So what is the next operator? Minus. So minus versus division. Minus versus division. Minus yields precedence to division, and because it yields precedence to division, we are going to shift division. Okay, so I have to reduce this further to create more space. Okay, so forgive me, it's a little messy, but it would. I hope this is it's coming in. So what do we have? We have dollar sign. We have E minus E, then the division. So from there we have ID and then dollar sign. By now we should know that the division is going to yield precedence to ID. So we checking this. Let's just do that. Division and ID. Division versus ID. So division versus ID. Division yields to ID. So we have that. So we shift ID. What do we have then? We have dollar sign. Then what do we have next? We have the dollar sign. And since it's the lowest precedence, we just know that this is going to take precedence over it. And then what do we do from here? We reduce ID. It derives ID. What do we have next? We have E. Now, since all we have is the right end of the input, we have just the dollar sign. Dollar sign is still weaker than the division, so we are going to still take precedence again. And then we can note that there is an undo here, and the undo is E divided by E. So what do we have? We are going to have reduce again. Reduce E times E divided by E. What's then next on the list? We have E minus E, and then we have the dollar sign over here, so we know that the minus is going to take precedence over that. So what do? We reduce again. We reduce E minus E. So let me just scale this one more time. From here, it's just one more reduction. Since that reduces, and this is the undo, you can just reduce this back to E. And then since we have reduced back to E, and then it's just the dollar sign, there's no more actions. This, we have dollar sign and dollar sign, which doesn't have an entry, so we can accept. So what did we just do? We just passed the string. We passed this string ID star ID minus ID divided by ID, which might have been a pain in the ass if we had to solve normally, but that checks out. We have performed the operator precedence on 2 questions now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. uh Thanks. I'll see you in the next video.